Welcome, everyone. Thank you, thank you. Well, today we have a very interesting show. And I thought I should bring this show to you guys because I once was in property management and this kind of touched me in a visceral way. So I was like, people in America dealing with some crisis. We constantly hear about the housing crisis, rent prices just keep artificially being increased. And so I set out to find out why. And so I started digging until I came across this company that a documentary was done on that talked about why some of these issues are happening with housing crisis. So today, I thought I would bring in the big guns, right? So we have a 25-year veteran with us, Bernie Campbell. He's been in real estate for 25 years, and we met in the gym, right?
Yes.
And we just kindle spirit. You know, when that happens, people just usually connect. And then once you connect, it's just easy. Communication is easy. And so we started talking, and I told him about the podcast, and we kept on communicating, right? And I thought he would be a great individual to have in the studio to talk about something to do with real estate and understand what's going on. So I decided I would give him a call. I always thought, hey, I'm going to give you a call, you know, but I want to make sure that it made sense with something that you're already familiar with, something that you've been doing for a while, and you have great insights on doing it. And when this came about, when I learned about what's going on, I would walk on the strip, and as you can see, that there are high rises going everywhere up around in downtown Hollywood. And I would hear some of the individuals or people that's looking for apartments saying, hey, the rents are really high. And recently we had an interview with a potential mayor candidate, and he also touched on how the market is being artificially price fixed, and to get certain individuals or certain groups of people out. So, or across the board, it doesn't matter the culture. It's just that these companies want to make the best or earn the most amount of money in the short amount of time. So they started doing price fixing. So with that being said, Bernie, I would like you to talk a bit about how long you've been doing it. Like I said, 25 years, and your experience in doing it, and what led you to go into real estate, and all the different nuances that you've experienced before we actually get into the show.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And, my name is Bernie Campbell, and been in real estate for over 25 years, and started out investing first and became a realtor about, I would say it's approximately 12 years after being an investor, because I saw the benefit. Hey, I don't need a realtor if I can get the license and become a realtor. But what pushed me to become a realtor is actually I've seen where there were some mistakes in the past where realtors are operating, but really wasn't properly informed. So I decided that I'm going to get into the business on the real estate agent side as well, being an investor already, and see if I can give a helping hand in that process, right?
Okay.
To help folks, because if there are some pitfalls there, well, they're not doing that good of a job helping their clients, right?
Right.
So I did that, and here I am. We're in two hats: real estate investor, real estate agent.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, what are the nuances that you experience in dealing with the people that, and the mistakes that you've seen in that period of time, and what were the nuances and how you were able to help those folks out of any situations that they were in as an investor and as a realtor?
All right. Well, I'll tell you right now, as an investor, it's surprising that there are a lot of folks out there are really beating the bush to own a property. And on the flip side, there are those other folks that's in a property and they just want to get out. And they can't move because an agent cannot help them. And this, you can see this in a situation where someone have a property and the roof is bad, and they can't sell it with an agent, because if someone comes in and they have a loan with your traditional Fannie Mae and Freddie loan, it's not going to work because the property is not livable. You have a bad roof, you probably have some foundation issues there, and as an investor, I can now come in with the cash, or find one of my investors' colleagues, come in with the cash and get them out of the situation that they're in, so they can actually get that property sold. And now I would take that property as an investor and bring it up to living standards where it can actually be Freddie and Fannie Mae qualified by replacing the roof, fixing the foundation, and all the other things that make it disqualified for a Fannie Mae loan, and get it sold. Or if I choose to, just rent it out and hold it as a rental asset. Yeah.
You know, as an island man, yourself like I am, we have this saying that says one hand washes the other. So in an even exchange for you have you're playing both. You're on both sides, investor and the realtor. So it's kind of like one hand washes the other and helps someone out of a bad situation. That makes a lot of sense to me, right? I commend you on that. I really like that, right? Because most individuals, they don't look on the other side. They're either an investor or they're a realtor. But you being on both sides, it works perfect for you, because you can reach out to those that have the funds. If you don't have all the funds to cover that property, you can say, hey, I have a great idea, I have a great plan. This property, the comps around the area is this amount, but it's in a dilapidated condition. Let's fix it up so it matches the comps, and then we have a good property, a good flip, or we can hold it as an asset and rent it out, like you said. Sounds good. That's
absolutely. And I'm also part of a group as well. So if I do not see an opportunity there to help a particular person sell a property, I can also bring someone in.
All right.
For example, there are folks that look specifically for property that's burnt out.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course. So I can bring someone in and it's burnt out, and they take it from there. You know, of course, there's a transaction between both investor and owner, and they take it from there and get the property back up to living standards.
I want to ask this question because I've seen in the past few years quite a bit of properties that have been burnt out. And sometimes I'm either in transit or I'm walking and I would see a home and I'm like, why is that home burnt out? Did they do something so they can get out of the house? And I've been seeing it. Pardon me a second. I've been seeing it quite often than not, burnt out properties, and that has piqued my curiosity. Like, why am I seeing so many now, right? So maybe people are finding a different angle to get out of their property.
You know, this is South Florida. That's all I have to say. Florida is known for being first in fraud. During 2005, when they had that big crisis and so forth. So I would not be surprised if folks are taking a different approach to moving on. That's all I have to say on that.
No incrimination here, right?
Yeah.
So folks, we have an issue now where we're going to have to address with the housing crisis, with the rental prices, the artificial inflation on prices, which is why you're here, so we can have a meaningful banter on it. Because I have my opinion, but then there's a lawsuit and cases. People have been complaining about the artificial price fixing that a particular company have been doing. And so we need to find out why it's happening, or we need to have a conversation about what would be the solution. And with this company, being that they're caught with their proverbial pants down, is there a way that we can go around them going directly at the owners of these buildings and or would it have to be a lawsuit that have to be filed, maybe a class action lawsuit or something that would have to be filed to get these folks to stop doing what they're doing. So with that being said, we can play the video and we can see what's actually going on with this company that's called Real Pages. So right before we play the videos, I think I did say earlier, but before, so I say more so now, let me go a little bit more into it. Real Pages is a company that have been price fixing. So what they would do is get all the owners together, have them on a contract, and it's a non-disclosure, non-compete contract, and they have to allow this company to make the decisions on how to set the rents based on how they want to earn funds, how they want to earn more money. So they would do artificial price fixing, and with doing so, it causes people to have to come up more out of their pockets and figure out how they're going to have a roof over their head. And because of this, people are being displaced. So I mentioned that to you earlier. So now we can watch the video because you did say something about how certain aspect of that is actually legal. And the video is going to point out why other aspects of it is actually illegal. So you can watch the video.
Well, I say it was illegal. That's what I said.
You say it was illegal?
It was illegal, right. It wasn't legal at all.
Oh, okay.
Just
okay.
going back to the Sherman Act.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. Then we can, the Sherman Act.
Yeah. So the Sherman Act, it was passed a long time ago. The first Sherman Act was passed July 2nd, 1890. So it's been a while. 1890.
I apologize about that because I misunderstood. I thought you said certain aspects were legal and other aspects of it is illegal. So I apologize. I don't want to miscommunicate that with anyone that's listening. So, yeah. Yeah.
So it's completely illegal. No two party or more can get together and plan and secretly agree to intentionally inflate something, or it could be wages as well.
Yes. In any industry.
But in this case, any industry. Right. But in this case, we're speaking about rent.
Right.
To inflate a specific price to really control the marketplace. That can't be done. It's kind of monopolized. You can't do that.
Right.
If you do that, it's a criminal violation.
Right.
Criminal, that's it. And you can go to prison for that for many, many years.
Rightfully so.
Yes.
Rightfully so, because you're affecting people's lives. It's kind of like, to me, I say a person having somewhere to live versus having food to eat, they would prefer having somewhere to live, and then they'll figure out how to find something to eat. But if you can find something to eat and nowhere to live, you're left out there in the wilderness. Essentially, right?
Yes.
Right.
That is correct.
All right. So let's play the video, Ray.
It's late 2023, the Phoenix area. Investigators with the State Attorney General's office are looking at apartment rents. They're up 76% since 2016. Something is off. These 4 building rents are 12% higher than others, but they offer similar amenities. They have different landlords, so you'd think they should be competing with one another, but they weren't. The prices were allegedly being set by one entity, an algorithm owned by a company called RealPage. In fact, this was happening everywhere in the area.
That's old-fashioned price fixing using new technology.
We allege, in effect, a housing cartel.
Over 2,000 miles away, something similar is happening.
It's alleged that all of these different units, their prices were set by one single algorithm, which sounds bad.
And it could be happening in cities and states across the country. Renters have filed over 30 different lawsuits against RealPage.
We're going to talk about what all this means, how algorithms, these black boxes of data, are shaping our markets and giving an incredible amount of power to the few, and how the Department of Justice and some state attorney generals are fighting back. Because this is a story about how a few lines of code broke the American housing market.
What is RealPage?
So RealPage is a company that operates software that allows landlords to input their data into an algorithm, and then RealPage sets the prices for all of those landlords. This is actually against the law.
Attorney General Mays isn't the only one alleging this.
Our allegations are that RealPage, in combination with 14 of the largest landlords here in the District of Columbia, are effectively colluding with one another to set rents.
Across America, rent is up 20% since 2020. The Attorney Generals of Arizona and DC are suing RealPage and a host of big landlords, alleging that an algorithmic housing cartel is helping drive up prices.
In the pre-RealPage days, landlords would compete with one another.
They played a guessing game with rent prices. Push it too high and people move, leaving landlords hunting for new tenants. It was a delicate balance, a market. And I'm not sure if it was fair, but it wasn't rigged. An algorithm helped change all of that.
We're talking about an algorithm that aggregates otherwise confidential information that the landlords have that ordinarily they would not share with their competitors.
Data like rent prices, lease expiry dates, any deals they offer to tenants.
That allows then the algorithm to spit out a pricing recommendation, all designed to keep the overall market at its highest peak.
They are not charging what the market can bear. They are controlling the market. It's leading to the exacerbation of our affordability crisis, our housing crisis here in Arizona.
If you could imagine a smoke-filled room where the landlords, the largest landlords in the District of Columbia, came together to decide what they were going to charge in rent, to share their confidential information, everybody would be able to see that that's an anti-competitive practice.
Until recently, using shared pricing algorithms like this flew under the radar. If your algorithm set prices, you'd just say, it's not cheating, it's a suggestion. Not anymore. Lena Khan and the FTC have said, just a suggestion? That's price fixing, no excuses. And RealPage, according to the lawsuits, they weren't even pretending the prices were suggestions.
RealPage has a system set up where the landlords who have adopted the system agree to a set of rules.
One of the rules is that RealPage gets to set rent prices. If landlords want to charge less than the digital oracle suggests, they have to justify their decision.
The justification needs to be reviewed by RealPage. RealPage can push back against the justification.
And if you push back too much, RealPage can kick the landlord out of the scheme, with one insider telling investigators, sometimes we were happy to see customers go.
They also had a policing agent that would go out and make sure that the landlords and their leasing agents were staying in line and not deviating from the price that was being set.
This scheme, if true, has had a real tangible impact on Americans.
RealPage advertises that it's going to increase revenues 2% to 7% for the participants in the cartel.
What RealPage is telling these landlords and is doing with these landlords is, don't worry about occupancy rates anymore. It doesn't matter really how many people move out of your building, you're still going to grow your revenue over time.
How? Through these coordinated price increases.
In Phoenix alone, we've seen rent increase 76% since 2016. It is almost certain that people were evicted as a result of these price increases, and that some people were made homeless by them.
Wow.
To their prospective customers, the landlords, RealPage is pretty open about all of this. You can go to their website, type in a zip code, and view a sample of what buildings are using the software, along with any corresponding price changes. We'll see, this building right here, rent is actually down about 4%. If we just zoom out a little bit, a few blocks over, this rent is actually up 4%. They used to have videos where landlords talked about how RealPage's algorithm pushed them to raise rent, but the company deleted it after the Washington Post ran a story.
Of
On
course.
investor calls, they're flat out saying the algorithm is going to recommend higher lease rates for every property. But the company goes to great lengths to train landlords to hide this scheme from renters. Landlords were coached across a variety of scenarios and told not to mention RealPage or pricing algorithms to tenants. Instead, they were supposed to say stuff like units were being priced individually. RealPage and the larger industry dispute the charges. Since the onslaught of lawsuits, RealPage has largely stayed quiet, ignoring our request for an interview. But the industry has published a paper defending itself. They make a bunch of different arguments, but it boils down to two major points. The first, sharing info doesn't mean they're teaming up. Why? Because the rental world is just too big and too messy for any sort of secret deal to stick. But that doesn't seem to stand up to scrutiny.
The RealPage algorithm is being used by nearly 90% of the apartment owners in the DMV.
RealPage controls 70% of the rental units in Phoenix, and that they control at least 50% of the market in Tucson.
90% in DC, 70% in Phoenix. That hardly seems like a fragmented rental market. And their second point, more houses, not less data sharing, is the real fix for high rents.
That's bunk. You know, we've got apartment units all over Phoenix that aren't being rented right now because people can't afford them. The spaces are there, but people can't afford them because these landlords are setting artificially high rent via an algorithm. And that
pause
is
it right there, Ray.
unacceptable. Absolutely.
You know, I heard about this happening a few years back. There's some apartments, high-rise in downtown, in Midtown, and someone I know that currently lives in Midtown mentioned to me that Brazilians, the multi-millionaire Brazilians or foreigners coming from Europe, and buying up condos and buying up or renting the apartments and just having them sit there with no one renting them. And originally, when she went to rent the apartment, she was going to get a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom for $3,500. Then about a week and a half, she went back, and now they wanted $5,000 for it, for the same unit. And I wondered, like, why was this happening? Because I kept on hearing the same thing. But it is apparently that it seems to be more prevalent than it was 2-3 years ago. Maybe it was happening, but just I wasn't aware of it. What say you?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if you're sitting in on another continent and you have $200-300 million holding in cash, you just buy a high rise in Manhattan cash, and there you go. You have a high rise now, and then what you do, you can borrow against that. So you just take out a loan.
You're
so
right,
you just
because you have an
$300
asset.
million cash out of wherever that is sitting, because there's no other way. You can't just go deposit that in the bank, buy a high rise building in Manhattan. You don't need tenants. Just rent it out. Don't rent it out, but just go borrow, get a secure loan against that building, and there you go. What do you have? $600 million now because you have a building that's sitting there. So, and you know exactly what that is, right?
I know.
Yeah, that's it's more frequent than you think.
Wow.
Yeah. It's more frequent than you think.
When you have they say people with money, with real money, know how to make more money. They know how to double their money overnight. And I have a buddy of mine that he's the, I would say, a president of the Midwest 4 franchise, right? And he and we were having a conversation the other day, and he was like, hey, he's trying to raise $1.5 million for because he controlled the entire Midwest for opening franchises or franchising, giving others that want to own franchises out. And he was like, once I get that money, this is how I'm going to get the money increase. I'm going to do this with it. I'm going to get a line of credit. And then we were talking about it, and he was like, hey, buddy, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, you put this money here, you put this money here. And if I didn't put money into the podcast, I would have given you money, and you know, and we talked about certain aspects of it, but as a business person, whether being a honest business person or a nefarious business person, you tend to want to look for ways to increase your cash holdings or your assets, and sometimes it's at the expense of others wanting to. Let me put this note in. There's a saying that if you have control over the things, the necessities or the essentials that people need, you can control an entire country. Food, water, housing, etc., etc., etc. And so that's what these folks have been doing. And I did not know that it was that prevalent.
Yes, yes, yes. It is. You know, interest rate increases,
Right.
and from an economical, beneficial standpoint, a lot of folks see it would make sense to go just rent a property out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the most inexpensive thing to do from an economical standpoint is to probably get a unit, an apartment. Now, these apartment, 100 unit, 150, 200 units, these
Mhm.
large apartment buildings,
Yes.
you typically have two people, right? You have a limited partnership, which is someone who invests in the actual building itself,
Mm-hmm.
just put up the money but makes no decision. And then you have the general partnership, these guys who raise the capital.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, in order to do that, typically you have to be an accredited investor. An accredited investor is someone who has $1 million in net worth or more.
Mm-hmm.
So you go ahead and have this general partner who's sourcing the deal, locating the deal, locating apartment buildings. For example, might have located an apartment building in Arizona, and they found something that's 200-300 units, and they send it out to all the accredited investor and say, hey, we have this, and you can invest this amount or whatever you choose, minimum $50,000, and we'll give you a pref. Okay, so the more money, more investors they actually get to invest in that building, it's best for them. They make more money as a general partnership. The general partner doesn't have any funds in the deal. He sourced the deal and everything, so he gets paid maybe 30% of that deal by just locating the deal and locating the investors and bringing them together and doing most of the work. So these large apartment buildings now are out there, tons of these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually doing this, right? And they're constantly buying up commercial large apartment buildings, and they know they're communicating with each other.
Is this? I think it's called a REIT. Is it a
It's called syndication.
syndication?
A syndication
Okay.
where they're syndicating deals, right? So
Uh-huh.
you have a syndication, the
So-
general partner.
So it's different.
It's REIT, correct.
Okay.
Real estate investment trust. That's another
Right.
way. So you can also put up money and invest. You're
Mhm.
not doing the work, but that's similar, but something a little different. You getting a return on your money,
Mhm.
but the syndication is somewhat similar,
Similar,
but
different.
but different.
Because the general, is it the general partner or the syndicator is getting 30%?
Yeah, it's getting 30%.
So
From the entire deal. So let's say they purchased the deal for, let's say, all right,
using small number, let's say $1 million, so people can understand. Let's say $1 million.
Okay, $1 million.
Mhm.
And he would get a percentage of that, which is 30%.
That's 300 grand.
Right. And we purchased it with the anticipation, because I just want you to let you know that commercial apartment buildings, the value is based on the rent roll. So
Mhm.
if you can push the rent up,
Mhm.
increase the rent by, let's say, even $100,
Mhm.
and you have a 200 unit,
Mhm.
so you're getting additional $100 times 200 per month on that deal. You just force the appreciation
Yeah.
on the bill.
I'm-
So the higher the rent, the higher the value.
I'm
So that's
familiar
why
with
these
that.
guys were
Yeah.
banking.
Uh,
That's the reason why these guys were banking,
yeah.
right?
I'm familiar with that because I used to work for a development company, and when they want to get more money from investors and then have the government come in and subsidize it, they would increase the rent by even 2-3%, and then they would go and say, hey, the value of it is this much because we've increased, and they're getting it from maybe 280 units. 3%, that's a lot when they can go and say, hey, now we need 200 million. We have five of these buildings with 200 and something units. We need 200 million. They get it like that. I've seen, and I've actually done some of the paperwork to submit to the state. So I know what you're talking about. I'm not as knowledgeable as you are because I've been in it like the way you have been, and it's been so many years since I've actually been out of it, but still have some kind of understanding. So when you're saying it, it's simpler for me to understand, but maybe the listeners, they won't understand. But what you're saying, I think it's easy for them to get it and understand why this is happening to them.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you have a building,
Mm-hmm.
a general partner,
Mhm.
sourced for the building. He found the building, and they come to a decision that they're going to purchase this particular building,
Mm-hmm.
and they send all the information to all their investors, the accredited investors, and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and purchase this, and we need to raise X much. Let's say the building, because $20 million.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because I've done syndication
yeah,
before,
yeah.
$20 million, and they purchase the building. And in order to determine the value on the building, they typically look around. They look at population growth, what's happening in the actual community, and so forth. And they look at the rent roll of other buildings.
The comps.
The comps, right? Well, not the comps of other large assets, just the same. So now imagine you have someone that decide that, you know what, it would be a great idea. Instead of us competing against each other, let's all work together.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because your rent roll, you're charging $700 per unit, and I'm over here trying to get my value up from $800 to maybe $1,000 or $1,200 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a conversation and see how we can all work together and control this marketplace, all right, and drive up the prices. And this is where we want to be.
Here
So
goes the cartel.
So here go Real Pages, the software.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this thing does it for us. So everyone now, instead of competing against each other, is working on a level playing field. Because
But is it really a level playing field though?
well, yeah.
Because let me say why I say that. Is it really a level playing field? Because you have an apartment where you're renting it for $700, and I have one where I want to increase the price to $1,200. But because of my compadres, my colleagues, and we're already in agreement, we come over here to you, and we're going to force you into being a part of what we're doing. And if we don't do it, I mean, if you don't do it, then you're ousted, and you get let's use a movie word, typecasted, right? You're exiled, right? So essentially that's what happens. And when a situation like that happens, what happened to a person like you if they don't want to join this cartel?
You know, it's hard to say, but you probably won't make any money anymore.
How? If you have a unit, a unit, and people know that you're renting it for $700, in comparison to $1,200, they're going to essentially come to you because they're going to get the same 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom for $500 less. Why wouldn't they come to you?
Well, they can buy you out too. They can buy you out. They can give you something that's a sweetheart deal and say, hey, you know what? If you don't want to participate, we'll give you this much for it, and just buy you out.
And what if you don't want to sell?
Well,
What happens then?
You know, that could be a different thing too. That's a different thing. You know, you just never know. You just never know. But I know they have their ways of deciding ultimately what's going to happen to your building.
So
Yeah.
they can essentially force you out of your building, force you to sell. Would it look something like maybe they know a politician, maybe they know a judge, maybe they can, some harassment is going on?
Lawsuits just suddenly start happening, that type of thing. And these guys specialize in large apartment buildings. If you have a 60 unit or a 50 unit, they're not going after that. These guys are going after large unit, like 150, 200
Units.
200 units. So a guy that owns 70 units, that's a small deal. Most of these guys do not purchase units less than 100 doors. So it has to be over 100 doors.
So we're talking like anywhere from 175 million to 300 million type of situation.
I would say more along the lines of 10 million, 15 million, right around there. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So for that reason now, everyone is benefiting. The investors, you put up $1 million, if they can raise the price, if they have a projected price, because once they analyze the deal and look at the deal and it makes sense, once they know, which they know, they're going to do something called, they're going to force the appreciation it's called value add. Investors, these guys look for value add, to add value to the property. If the numbers are not there, they just won't do it. So the fact that they have a projected price, you buy it for 10 million, but you know in maybe 2 to 3 years, you might be at
25 million.
25 million. The more they make is the more the more it goes up, the price increases, everyone makes money. You get a pref return. The projected value, what it's sold for.
Explain what a pref return is.
You get a preferred return on your money. So, for example, you said, okay, all right, there's an agreement with you and the actual investors, not the investors, but the deal, when you put the deal
for the
together.
syndication.
For the actual syndication. So you put up, let's say, $1 million, they may tell you, okay, you might get something like a 40% return every quarter.
Isn't that kind of high though? 40%?
Well, so I've seen 20%, I've seen 20, 25, I've seen 30%. Yeah, so 20%, 25% is very common.
Okay, you were just using
I'm just using numbers.
Okay.
For argument's sake.
Okay.
But 20%, 25% is very common. A 25% preferred return on your money.
Yeah.
That's what you get every quarter on $1 million, which is not bad at all.
1 second. Well, everyone, Ray, put us over in this white camera right here. So, So everyone, this is why I brought the big guns in, because when he says pref, I understood what he meant, but some of you may not. Like, I'm not the smartest kid on the block, but I understand some of what he's saying. But I want you to understand. So when I asked him for clarification, is because I want him to explain so you guys can understand. All right? Yeah.
So I just want you to know, your average agent don't know this. I invest in real estate.
Right.
I love large apartment buildings myself.
Yeah.
So just want to let you know, I know a thing or two about it, but more than the average guy.
I didn't want to bring the machine gun in. I wanted to bring the cannon in. So that's why you're here. You're the cannon. So letting people know what some of the intricate deals that happen or how these deals can be structured. A person like you that's on both sides of the table would be able to explain based on a realtor, based on an investor, and people will be able to have some kind of understanding, because I think people are far removed from understanding, and my job here is to get people to understand why the crisis is going on, so they can better prepare themselves when they go out there. They have at least some ammunition, right? They can, since you're the cannon, they can, get a few small bullets, and they'll know how to. my analogy, my analogy.
I understand. So listen, it comes down to, you get a pref return, and you put up $1 million. You have your general partner. Whenever that time comes to really sell that asset, everyone gets paid.
And how would they go about selling the asset? Let me throw some stuff out there, some questions out there. Would it be selling it back to another syndication? Would it be selling it on the stock market? How would they go about? Would it be treated like as a corporation where they can slice it up and say sell shares in it, which is what a REIT is essentially? How would they go about?
Yeah, great question. So in most cases, they will sell it just same way they purchase it, just to another syndication, to a group of folks that's looking for asset, who have their investors, and the general partners, of course, would be sourcing the deal. They are the one that typically finds the deal again, and they just sell it to another syndication and move on to another asset and move on to another opportunity. That's all. Buy another property, add value, which is value add. Increases the rent, fix up the property, and possibly put in a new roof, put in a gym if it didn't have a gym, raise the value the same way, hold on, pay out the pref to the investors who they brought in, and project it to be at a certain number in a certain time period, and just get rid of that asset and sell the asset the exact same way. So when it's sold, everyone gets paid.
Being an investor, as a person, I'm not saying specifically you, but I'm just speaking in general when I say as a person, being an investor, the only skin in the game that they have is that they'll put up money so they can get a pref, right?
Correct. You're the limited partner. That is
Right.
correct. So you have no say in what the general partner does.
Now, that in a sense is artificial inflation happening over time, because of course we know real estate, it's if it's not the one, if it's not number one, it's probably the number two that have made people the wealthiest across the world, hands down, right? But what happens to the folks that are looking for places to live and can't find places to live? Because we all also know that they have to tackle inflation. They're getting the same pay, maybe $25 an hour, whatever amount they get. But we know that every year inflation goes up. They may say, oh, interest rates are going down. But really, it's not. People are saying, for the ones that understand how interest rates work, they may say, oh, okay, it's beneficial. You rent somewhere, interest rates go down. If it's a commercial property, you have the benefits of your rent getting a little bit lower. But if you're renting a home, it's different. Your rent is going to stay the same. Inflation is eating into your money. The dollar is being based. How is that going to affect people when these syndication are buying the buildings, then the value increases from 300 million to 600 million. They now offload it to another syndication. What happened to those people that when the prices goes up because 3%, 5%, however amount, what happened to those people when they can't afford the rent?
You saw it. You wind up on the street, or if you
Skid
can't
Row.
afford- yes,
Like California.
Yeah, or you have to possibly relocate. You find folks relocating out of South Florida because it became too expensive. While you realize the influx of people that's coming in because there's a lot of opportunities here. There are a few other things that kept properties high as well. You have to understand that, of course, there's inflation. There's inflation going on.
Yeah.
You can't blame it on just
Right.
these guys, we have inflation. We have an influx of folks coming in. We have post-pandemic folks found out now I can work from home. So instead of sitting in New York and work from home, why not move to Florida where I can work from
Right.
home, that type of thing. And then building supplies went up. So
Right.
that's pricey as well. The value of properties went through the roof. So folks say, you know what, let me go rent until interest rate comes back down, because interest rate went up, because inflation was out of control,
Yes.
because there's
Yes.
something called quantitative easing,
Yes.
where the government went and print
Unlimited amount of money.
$5 trillion in about 1 year period, and then gave us all stimulus, checks and so forth, and a lot of money was in circulation. And when Americans get money, they go to
shopping.
they go shopping and they go on vacation, and that's what happens. So a lot of that money is still in circulation. So it's like it's like a fake market, because
It is.
what's going to happen is that most that money is going to flush right out of the system, because you know what, you can take all the money in the world from the rich guys, the wealthy guys, and give it to everyone equally, and
And it's
wind
gonna end up right
back in the hands of the folks.
Twice the amount that it was taken from them and given to them, it's going to end up twice the amount. So if $1 million was taken from them, when it gets back around to them, it's now going to be $2 million. Right?
Correct.
The crazy thing about giving people money, because when they were doing the quantitative easing and they were doing the stimulus packages and they're finding different ways to give monies out, and people are what's the word I'm looking for? They are raging like, oh, this money is there. This money is coming in. It's our money. We want our money. They're getting mad when they say, oh, stimulus is going and the money should be in your account and it's not in the account. Where's my money? And they're raging. And then as soon as they get it, right to the department store, they go buy this expensive purses They go buy a new car, you know, and I've seen it so many times. Like even my nieces, right? They're in their 20s. They got stimulus money. And I turn around. Whoa, where did you get that purse from? Where did you get a watch from? Like they blew their money, right? So there's a saying that, and you just mentioned it. If you give certain type of people money, you take, because there's this big push to take monies away from billionaires, tax the billionaires. And I'm like, that's one of the dumbest things I hear, right? Because if you tax them, they're going to find a way to get that money back 10 times, right? And I think it's ridiculous to want to tax the people when they're already being taxed. Some people don't understand that there's two kinds of money. There's the tangible money, and then there's the intangible money, the one that's just numbers in a computer, right? So if you give people the tangible money, they're going to blow the tangible money, and they don't understand how the actual digital money, before we were talking about cryptocurrency,
Right.
they don't understand money was always digital, right? It was just centralized, right? Cryptocurrency is just decentralization,
Decentralized,
right?
correct.
And so when you give people physical money, they're not going to use, some will use it for the right reasons, that it will benefit them and their families. Some will just blow it. But what they don't understand, that when they're talking about tax the billionaires, the uber millionaire needs to be paying this amount of taxes. To me, that's so ridiculous. So you're going to tax the people that are given jobs. What do you think is going to happen when you tax them? They're going to find a way to get that money back, and it's going to affect the general public. Do you agree with me, or?
Oh, absolutely. And we see it every day. Louis Vuitton,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know, his net worth before post-pandemic was less.
Yes.
And then it went up after.
Mm-hmm.
Louis
Pre-pandemic,
Vuitton. Yeah,
post-pandemic.
Yes.
He's now what three? He's what, the third richest person in the world?
Yes. So they went shopping. Louis Vuitton, and I can go on with all these wealthy guys. Amazon, his net worth went up because
Mhm.
folks went shopping on Amazon, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that was going to happen. Putting money in people's hand is not the way to make them a better individual. I'm being
Right.
honest with you. Some of the most successful people in the world at some point didn't have any money growing up.
Correct.
And now they know the value of a dollar. So what's going to happen, the answer to your question is, what we're going to see is the have and have not, the gap widens, right? You're going to see that happens because now the money it's leaving the system slowly. Believe me, it is leaving slowly. And then we're seeing something today that we haven't seen probably ever, is inflation, right?
All-time high.
And high interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, inflation is here, and
Interest
rate is
so it
down
would
here.
stabilize.
So it does something like this.
Right.
And stabilize, right? But you cannot push the interest rate any higher, because if you push the interest rate higher than it is now, what's going to happen is that now you're going to find the investors that invest a lot of money, millions of dollars,
They're
you're
gonna
going to have
pull back.
to pay them more money on their investments, because they get more money as the further the interest rate goes up. So the bank won't be able to pay out.
Mm-hmm.
So pushing the interest rate higher is just going to crash the banks. You definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So as far as the housing crisis is concerned, it's still high. Rents are still high, and folks are mostly renting, because no one wants to sell right now, because they're holding on to that low interest rate that they have, the close to 0%, which is about 3%. When
Mhm.
Ben Bernanke kept it low for many years, so they're holding on. They're not selling. And if anything, they're not refinancing, they're just going to hold tight and stay home, and probably have some family members move back in with them. You drive past a house today, you see 5, 6, 7 cars, because you have
Mhm.
20 people living in the house.
See it quite often now.
You see quite often, more than ever. So now, folks are saying, well, interest rate, when it goes down, prices are going to go down. But can you imagine interest rate goes down, folks see the opportunity to go shopping and selling their home and that type of thing. So what do you think is going to happen to the prices?
They're
If
gonna
interest rate goes, it's going to even go
increase,
even
yeah,
higher.
they're gonna go higher.
So that doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm.
But as far as the syndication is concerned, what these guys are doing is they're controlling
The market.
They're controlling the market, and they're trying to get everyone on board, which they've done. You have Cushman Wakefield, which is a big commercial company.
I haven't heard of Cushman Wakefield.
Well,
Talk.
they I think are they the affiliate of Real? Are they?
I don't know. I don't know.
They're-
But
okay.
talk about Cushman Wakefield.
So Cushman Wakefield is a commercial branch that employs tons of people that handle a lot of these commercial buildings.
Mhm.
Okay, if you Google their name, you'll see them online selling apartment building as well. And if you look it up, they're very close to Real Page. Yeah, they're very close to Real Page. And these guys are constantly looking for investors. These general partners
Mhm.
to raise more capital to buy more assets.
Well, give me
Okay.
a second. Spell. Let me go.
CUSH.
Hold on. Let me open it. CUSH. Cushman Wakefield.
Yeah, WAKEFIE.
Okay. Oh, Cushman Wakefield.
Is it Cushman?
Cushman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cushman Wakefield. Let's read about them. Cushman and Wakefield Inc. is an American global commercial real estate service firm. The company, I'm reading it from Wikipedia, just the clip. The company's corporate headquarters is located in Chicago, Illinois, close to Arizona, right? Cushman and Wakefield is among the world's largest commercial real estate service firm, with revenues of $9.5 billion in 2023. Whew. Let me see what their net. That's probably their gross. Let me see what their net is. Operating costs. Let me see. Cushman Wakefield. So, President, Chairman, Brett White. Okay. Operating income, $206 million in 2023. Their revenue is $9.49 billion. 2023. Operating income, $206 million. 2023. Their net is negative $35 million. So they were down. They're negative $35 million. So they're in a hole for 2023. Their total asset is $7.77 billion in 2023. And their total equity is $1.6 billion in 2023. They have 52,000 employees. Cushman and Wakefield.
Can you do me a favor and just look up Cushman and Wakefield? And no, I want you to do it. Cushman and Wakefield and Real Pages together. Do something like that.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. That will be interesting, right?
Oh, you're going to see something.
That they might be the ones that own.
Oh, they work together. They're yes. I think they. I don't want to. I would rather you look it up.
Yeah, let's see.
I've seen.
Oh, come on. All right, so here it is. All right, first settlement in, well, let's see if it's, why is Real Page is being sued? Real Page is accused. Let's do this. Does Cushman and Wakefield own Real Page? Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's try that. Owns. Who owns Real Pages? All right. All right. So, one example of this is Real Page, a corporation that creates software programming for property management and real estate. I don't see anything with Cushman and Wakefield's involvement in it, but they're probably hidden by in different LLCs to hide who really owns them. Say who owns Thama Bravo. Thamo Bravo owns. See? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Private equity firm. Oh, it's a private equity firm that owns them, Thamo Bravo. But who tell that maybe Cushman and Wakefield are investors in Thamo Bravo? Because you're right. You're very right. I usually, it's like I have these kind of conversation with people. I say, hey, the same people that owns the real estate, the private homes, because you know what's been going on too, that they're buying up private homes. So the same people that owns these private homes and renting them out as renters, they're also owning the commercial properties. It's a circle. Like the same people that own the food industry, they own the drug pharmaceutical industry, they own the grocery store. It's a circle, right?
Right.
So I don't think it's far removed to say that Cushman and Wakefield. I don't know.
I read something. That their affiliates there's some affiliation there. I read it.
I tend to want to agree with that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you though, it's interesting that I'm not surprised at all when I saw that antitrust came out. That what's going on there. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, and I remember I was saying to you that it's happening across America when we were talking about the title, and you say, is it happening across America? And I'm like, yeah, it's happening across America because they're forcing their power over on different property owners, like of large units.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You know, but thinking about just Florida in itself, though, it's what better state can it happen where folks love the free market here. You know, it's a free market here. You know, there's no rent, you know, stabilization. There's no rent. You know, you can just rent your property for whatever you want.
Yes.
You know, as long as you can do that.
Yeah.
Versus New York,
Mm-hmm.
and not get pushed back. So folks come here. There's no state tax. Is that right?
Yeah. No, we don't think we don't have any state tax here.
Yeah.
We just have we have I think community, like the local municipality, like city, but I don't think we have any state tax here. Right.
Exactly. You know, the majority of there are 22. Let me see, 22. There are 22 million millionaires in the United States.
22.
22
million.
Yeah, 22 millions. Yeah, 22 million. But, 22 million. 23.
Yeah. I think it increased.
Yeah, 23. It's not over 25 though, unless I'm not keeping track. I'm off track. All right.
Millionaires. Oh, okay. In the U.S.
Or 22, 23 million. Right. And
23.7 million.
Okay, so it went up a little bit. So 23, right? And my goal is to always be one of them. But
sign me up.
Listen. We've been working in for, we love real estate. We invest in real estate. And I say that to tell you, majority of millionaires in the United States, net worth is tied up in their home.
That's true.
It's tied up in their home.
That's true.
We're so fortunate that it's not in our home. Majority of our net worth is an investment. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
That's the way to go. So instead of having our money is working for us.
Right.
So what you'll see, to answer the question you asked me earlier, is you'll see the have-not and the have, their income, their net worth, the margin in terms of net worth widens because their money is locked in their home. and they really can't do much with it. They don't have access to it.
Right. If I may add to that too, it's a danger. It's somewhat of a security, but I think it's a bit of false security, because if you have a home, and let's say you're the homeowner, and you're the only homeowner alive, and you pass away, and you didn't do like a living trust, or where you can, because a will, essentially, you can still have a home and it goes into probate.
That
right?
is correct. That
because
is correct.
I will only say these are the demands, or these are the wishes of such and such person when they pass on.
Correct.
But if you don't create a trust that you put the home in, like a revocable trust,
Yeah.
to transfer the home over to, am I saying this right?
Yeah, so you
Over-
have, right. So you have a trust, and then you have a actual LLC,
Mm-hmm.
and the LLC is a beneficiary of the actual trust.
Right.
Right. So that you have it set up that way. So everything is written out in the actual trust, and it says exactly what should happen. If you pass away, your child should get this, and if your child passes away, your grandkids should get that, and that's how it should work, right?
Right.
However, but having a will is not enough. You will
Right.
still wind up in probate,
Right.
and I've seen it so many times. So to protect your asset is to definitely have a trust there,
And it's a living trust, right?
Yes, yes.
Living revocable trust, right?
Yes.
So as an investor, I don't want to be the person that says it wrong, but I understand how it works. Give more insight on revocable and irrevocable trust, and how that works for people that own homes and don't want to lose it when they pass on, by thinking just by merely having a will suffice for them to be able to pass the assets on to their offspring.
So the trust is pretty much, you speaking from the actual grave, saying exactly what you want to happen after you actually, you do pass away. So and that's how that is, right? So you say specifically what you want to happen, right? However, there are other things that comes in, which I would rather an attorney explain that side of it. I don't want to really get too deep into that. And however, the actual probate process will still take effect, even though you have that will.
Right.
So
And the trust eliminates the probate, because it tells the court that you have no rights over here. We already handled it before the owner passed on.
right, because the owner of the actual property, it's not you. It's the actual trust, and you are a beneficiary of
The trust.
Right.
Right. So let me see if I can break it down in layman terms, right? I'm going to call myself layman, right?
Right.
So let's see if we can break it down in layman terms for folks that still may not understand. So essentially, when you have an LLC, Essentially, when we have an LLC, and the LLC stands as a person, because a company is considered a person in America. So when the LLC it stands for limited liability company, start a LLC, and it now acts as a person holding whatever you give it to hold. So it's like a parent say, "Hey, you're my child. I'm going to give this to you. And when anything happens to you, you're going to give it to your child." That's essentially what Bernie's saying, and that's essentially how it works in layman terms. Correct?
Right, and then you have, of course, the trust is, of course, there as
There,
well.
as the added protection to make sure that the asset sits in the trust, and the state can't touch it, because it essentially put them in handcuffs away from putting that property in probate, which will drain all the asset out of it. And by the time it's done, that house is going to be put up for sale, because no one is going to have any equity. There's not going to be any more equity in it for the individual or the family member that it was supposed to be passed down to. So essentially leaves them in more debt, and they end up have to sell the home because they have to clear up their other debts, maybe the lawyer fees and all of the other stuff. So,
Of course, and that's exactly where it comes from. Those additional fees, when you go through probate on the court, everything comes from the actual proceeds of the actual property itself when it's sold. The trust also is not recorded. It's in your house in a closet somewhere, so no one knows what's on there and what it says.
Right.
So-
And most people put a trust in it, like they put it in a bank safe, and only certain people will know the combination or have a key to go in it, because it doesn't have to really be filed with the government.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Right. So let's continue with the video.
Things are shifting. Renters are banding together in class action lawsuits. Arizona, DC, and possibly North Carolina are suing. They want to end the scheme, refund renters, and fine companies like RealPage. The DOJ has started a criminal investigation into the whole thing.
I don't think this is just an Arizona-based problem. This is not the only place where algorithms are being used to set prices.
This is, to me, one of the bigger kind of issues facing kind of our economy and consumers in the next decade or so.
There's a lot of positive things that algorithms and machine learning can do for society, but there are also risks associated with it. We can't be afraid of technology. We have to lean in and learn about it and make sure that we're keeping the public safe from the abuses that can sometimes flow from misuse of technology.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, thank you. So,
It's late 2023.
No,
the Phoenix
no,
area.
Investigators
Investigators with the
turn
state attorney
the
general's office
turn
are
the
looking at a
yeah. Bring up the bring up the lawsuit.
I think they settled on the lawsuit already. There's a settlement on the lawsuit.
You think there's a?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
there's a settlement. They did settle.
Okay. So we're going to
You don't want to drag. They don't want
No.
to drag this thing out. You
right,
wanna
right,
End
right.
it really fast.
Yeah, I think they realize what's going to happen, and it will shut their business down if they're constantly, because all these people will be exposed.
Right.
Right.
Right. I'm wondering how it affect the investors. That's the only concern that I have here.
T, can you read this?
Attorney General Chris Mays today announced a lawsuit against RealPage Inc., a 9 major residential apartment landlords operating in Arizona for conspiring to illegally raise rents for hundreds of thousands of Arizona renters in the Phoenix and Tucson metro areas. RealPage is a software company that offers what is called revenue management to its clients, including those named as its co-defendants in this lawsuit.
You went up too far.
The conspiracy allegedly engaged in by RealPage and these landlords has harmed Arizonans and directly contributed to Arizona's affordable housing crisis, said Attorney General Mays. In the last 2 years, residential rents in Phoenix and Tucson have risen by at least 30%, in large part of this conspiracy that stifled fair competition and essentially established a rental monopoly in our state's 2 largest metro areas. RealPage and its co-defendants must be held accountable for their role in the astronomical rent increases forced on Arizonans. The state's lawsuit alleges RealPage's revenue management software works by compiling competitively sensitive data on pricing and occupancy from competitors in the market for multifamily apartment leases, and then directing the competitors to have entered the conspiracy on which units to rent at what price. The Attorney General's lawsuit specifically alleges that the defendant's landlord illegally concluded with RealPage to artificially raise rents and conceal their conspiracy from the public. By providing highly detailed, sensitive, non-public leasing data with RealPage, the defendant landlord departed from normal competitive behavior and engaged in a price-fixing conspiracy. RealPage then used its revenue management algorithm to illegally set prices for all participants. RealPage conspiracy with the landlord co-defendants violate both the Arizona Uniform State Antitrust Act and the Arizona Consumer Fraud Act. Arizona's antitrust law prohibits conspiracies in the restraint of trade, and attempts to establish monopolies to control, or fix prices. The state's consumer fraud statute makes it unlawful for companies to engage in deceptive or unfair acts or practices, or to conceal or suppress material facts in connection with a sale. In this case, apartment leases. The illegal practices of the defendants led to artificially inflated rental prices and caused Phoenix and Tucson area residents to pay millions of dollars more in rent. Defendants conspired to enrich themselves during a period when inflation was at its historic high, and Arizona renters struggled to keep up with the massive rent increases.
All right, we can stop it there. For the rest, we'll put the links in the description to make sure that you guys can go and actually read what the lawsuit is about if you're interested. And as you can see, that the different defendants in this lawsuit, the landlords' names in this lawsuit are Apartment Management Consultants LLC, Avenue 5 Residential LLC, BH Management Services LLC, Camden. You know, we all know who Camden is, right? Camden Property Trust, Crow Holdings LP, Tarmel Crow Residential, Graystar. We know who Graystar is too, right? Management Services LP, HSL Properties Inc., RPM Living, you know who RPM Living is too, LLC, and Wiedner Property Management LLC. Some of them I'm familiar with, some I'm not. And like I said, everyone, the links will be in the description. As you can see, at the end of it, it says Real Page Complaints, and that's the full PDF document. And we'll put that link in the description so you guys can actually take a whiff at it and read through it yourselves. We will. I was planning on doing it, but I think it's going to make this video much longer. So we'll just leave it there, and you guys can go check it out. But this is in my opinion, I use the word horrific, because we have people. We walk down on the strip and we see homeless people all the time. Downtown Hollywood, Miami, Palm Beach, and we know Palm Beach is a very well-to-do city or county, and we see homeless people all the time. And then we have all these properties that are just sitting vacant,
Yeah.
right? And they're saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, we don't have enough living spaces for people."
Stop the cap.
But when you really think about it, I don't know, I'm just going to wildly throw a number out there. I would anticipate there's a possibility there's probably 200,000 units across the country that's just sitting vacant. And while certain counties and cities and states are giving away monies to homeless people so they can have a mobile phone, or they can buy food, or they're feeding them, they're being displaced. I was watching a video on a documentary about Skid Row in California, and they were interviewing a doctor that lost his practice. Because he lost his practice, he lost his home, and now he's living on the streets. A doctor.
Yeah, I saw something like that. Yeah, he's just out living on the streets. He had his whole entire business. He just lost the whole thing.
Yeah, right around COVID, when COVID started.
Yeah.
And when I see that, and not only him, some of the people from his staff, they're also living on Skid Row. Like, to me, I feel his pain, because to be a successful doctor and then you can't have patients to keep your business because you have payroll, and you need monies, you need revenues coming in from patients. The doors are closed because of, what we went through, the pandemic.
What makes this absurd more than anything else as well is we're in an inflation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's an inflation, And on top of an inflation, you have all this happening. So you're already forcing the prices. Not only it's already above it, the prices already being up.
Right.
You're pushing the prices 40 and 50% up above the inflated price. So it's almost impossible. I can imagine how many people even got evicted in these units
Yeah.
because they couldn't make the rent.
Yeah. Even though they had a moratorium against eviction during the crisis that we were experiencing, right after that, people were just being pushed out. And police, they used the police force to come in and help the landlord. And rightfully so, the landlord, they have to pay their mortgages too, right?
Yeah.
So they need people in there that can pay the rent. But when these people don't have jobs, how are they going to be able to pay the rent? It's just, it's a phenomenon that's just mind-boggling. How it's like there's no equilibrium.
Right.
I'm wondering.
I don't know if you notice also, it just happens in certain states. Because as a landlord,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, and this is just me, I don't want to get political,
Mm-hmm.
but I've noticed that the blue states
Mm-hmm.
are tenant friendly and the red states are landlord friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find that in New York, they're tough on things like this, but they're a lot more flexible when it comes to Florida. As an investor, I probably wouldn't try to join in on in syndication in New York or California, but of course, Arizona is a hot market for investors.
Right.
North Carolina,
Oklahoma.
South Carolina,
Mhm.
the Midwest,
Mm-hmm.
Florida more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So majority of the red states, you find that they love their landlord, which is fantastic. You understand? I'm happy that they love their landlord. So you probably find that a lot of this nonsense here happens there more than any other state. The red this deal with whatever they're doing here to make the additional funds.
What solutions do you think needs to be put in place to help to equalize, as I mentioned, equilibrium, to
Mhm.
equalize what's going on with the rent increases, the hikes, the artificial inflation, the homeless people, and the landlords, ergo investors?
That's a great question. I'll tell you this: you're always going to have homeless people. Some folks just would rather be outdoors and
True.
not have to deal with the responsibility of owing a landlord anything whatsoever. They don't want to work. They would rather not work and just, you give someone a house and they'll wind up right back on the street. As far as this is concerned, things like this, I see where the investors will find a way to somewhat, circumvent what's going on. It's like in DC, Capitol Hill, you have those lobbyists, right? They'll pay additional millions of dollars for a law to pass,
Mhm.
so they can have things their way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be tough because all this here is about money. That's what it's all about. It's about money. And when you have the haves who have the money and can pay their way out of this,
Let's use another word instead of pay. Pay sounds too kind. Let's use manipulate their way out of it.
manipulate their way out of this,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a challenge because now you have the prices here, right? So now where should the prices be if this is already done?
Mm.
Because they're paying it, right? Someone is paying
Someone
it.
is paying it.
Someone is paying
So
it.
they even though it was artificially done
Yeah.
and they found the market for it, it's going to be hard for them to go back down. It's kind of like if you gave a child a toy and the child misbehaved and you take the toy away, the child is going to have a tantrum.
Right.
And so you give monies to you were able to find a way to get monies into your pocket, and then somebody wants to come and say, no. It needs to be half the amount. You're going to be very upset.
Of course.
Rightfully so.
Absolutely.
Because as a businessman, your entire premise is to find ways to increase value for yourself and for your investors. And then when that value is being tampered with by external forces and you have no control over it, you're going to find other ways and means to make it happen. So you're able to, using the word, the unkind word, circumvent, nice word, right? Circumvent, to make sure that that does not happen, right? They may say, okay, we're going to move our funds into another type of asset so you can't get to our money. Or we're going to offload that. And then when interest rate comes back down, when you guys figure this out, then I'm going to come back in. They might just take their money and put it into a REIT, right? And just sit back and just collect, right?
Correct. Because, I'm like I said, I'm an investor. Probably if I wasn't an investor, the response would be completely different. I'm not supporting anything what these guys did. However, to answer your question, Department of Justice, DOJ, has to probably launch a little bit more internal investigation and send out their guys from Capitol Hill to go figure out what's going on here and see if they can get some guys.
When you say here, you're talking South Florida, you're talking just based on what's happening with RealPage?
South Florida, RealPage, and then I know there are other folks doing it as well. They're caught on to it. RealPage is the biggest play out there. So they want to smack them on the hand for it.
And they're trying to hide under the umbrella to make sure that they don't get smacked.
Right, but there are other folks out there that say, wait a minute, that's what's happening? Why is this guy charging that much? And they're trying to do the same thing as well. So go after the big player, right? So that's what Department of Justice is going to have to do. RealPage, and then do some additional internal investigation. So I think that's the way they have to go after it.
So as a landlord and as an investor, and what's RealPages has been doing, and when I say RealPages, I'm being general, but purely general, adding everybody in when I say the RealPages, right? The RealPages of the world.
Right.
How does that affect you and your bottom line in terms of collecting rent? Are you in the same mindset of increasing the value artificially? I'm not forcing you to answer. You don't have to answer, but I'm asking the question anyway. How does that affect you, and how does that affect your colleagues in keeping the rent to a modest amount that can help folks that are looking to be able to have a place to stay and cover their expenses?
Right. Great question. So as an investor, the goal and the objective is to always make sure you answer the question, what's the highest and best use of this money that I have now? If you have 500,000, $1 million, $2 million, what's the highest and best investment? And if you see an avenue where you can put your money in on that avenue and make more, you're going to make more.
Right.
So whatever the market rate is at the time, whether it's coming from RealPage inflating the market over there, and it for some reason find its value over in my community, I don't mind increasing my actual rent to the market, to the local market. I'm okay with doing that. I don't have a problem doing that. The whole purpose is to make as much money as possible. And if I'm providing somewhere for someone to sleep at night, make it nice and comfortable. If the value was created over there by RealPages, and like I said, the value for some reason find its way over into my local area, I'm going to be increasing my rent roll and increasing not my rent roll, but my rent, of course.
Right. Okay.
And I think, my lovely wife here would think the same as well. She can buy more shoes, right? but the point is, I would just go along with the market rent. That's it.
Okay.
I'm not going to undervalue my asset. I'm going to get as much as I possibly can.
A great response.
The asset.
I have another question to ask in terms of what you just said. when you say you want to increase the value because it found its way over to you, right? So the value was increased over there, and it's now moved its way into your community, and you say, okay, I'm going to increase the rent. You don't have a problem with increasing the rent to accommodate the market, right?
Correct.
Because now, would it be fair to say that if you kept the rent modestly, let's say the rent is $1,000, right? That's the market right now. And you said, you know what? Let's say it's for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It's $1,200. Would it benefit you to have a comfortable tenant that can afford $1,000, and maybe the 200, or maybe if you said 1,175, right? But that extra 75 is putting them over. And would it be fair to say that it would make more sense to have a happy tenant that would be able to accommodate the expense of the rent and have them living there comfortable for a longer period of time, and have them being a stable tenant, than having them to worry that, okay, on average, the rents are increased at about 3%, right? I don't know if that's what is for you. Some do it 3%, some do it 5%, and then you have the ridiculous one that will do it 10, 15, even 100%.
Right.
Right? Would it be fair to say having a happy tenants at 1,000 or 1,100 rather than 1,200, even though it's 1,200 over here, but you have it at 11 or 1,000, to make sure you have comfortable, happy tenants that could live there for however long and not have to be stressed out that $1,200, that extra 100 is going to really put a hole in their pocket. How would you say it would be fair to say to have a happy tenant that would be there for like maybe 5 years? Let me add this. I mentioned the 3%, and that's the standard. So if you know it's 1,000, 3% is going to be like what, $30, right? So rather than raising it $30 as opposed to raising it $1,200, because the market over here is $1,200, wouldn't it be more advantageous for you as a landlord to say just increase it to 3% rather than increase it to the $1,200?
That's a great question, because I've had this conversation many times.
With your wife?
Yes. And those things are, of course, taken into consideration. One can increase the rent, or they can let it stay where it is in place. However, when you increase the rent based on the market, my philosophy is take the approach, don't increase the rent in such a way that it will cause a hardship on the actual tenants,
Mm-hmm.
and the tenant end up breaking the bank or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, but you can increase the rent modestly where you're not as high as the man down the street.
When you say modestly, what do you mean? Are you accounting for the 3%, or when you say modestly, you're two parts to it? Are you doing it modestly, accounting for the annual 3%, or you are including the annual 3% but adding something else on it? So let's say maybe it's now 5%, so you add an extra 2% on it. So rather than 30, it's now 50.
Modestly means
Your definition.
It's close to the market value.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I do. I take a look at the market
Mm-hmm.
overall,
Mm-hmm.
and I get a sense of what rent is, and then increase it accordingly. Because I know this tenant is not going to move. Because if you move, you will be moving down, because you've noticed that all the prices around you are inflated.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you notice, a lot of folks had to accept the rent increase
Mm-hmm.
within the past 2-3 years
Right.
because they noticed that the prices are inflated all around, right? So I increase it modestly, not to meet the prices of what's out there here, but to at least have it somewhat just below that price, so they will stay in place and not move. Because if they move, if that tenant move, they're going to pay more. I know that by just analyzing, studying, and constantly price watching and rent watching the marketplace. So I know how much to realistically raise it to. And also, I also know the income of the tenant as well.
Okay, yeah,
And
because you get
then-
all the documents. And
Yes,
stuff.
and then credit score. Like you can't rent from me if you're not in the mid 700s. So I know your responsibility level.
Right.
Right.
Uh,
So I'm looking at is a lot of moving parts here, and I'm looking
Yeah.
at quite a few things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's one thing that a lot of tenants don't know or renters don't know, that even though when you buy a property and you have maybe 10, 20, 30-year, 50-year mortgage on it, depends on if it's commercial or residential, right? When you buy the property, whether it's commercial or residential, there is a annual evaluation done by the powers that be, which you have to pay taxes to, right, for the land. And even though the mortgage may remain the same for however long you own that property for, if you don't do a refi, you still have to pay taxes, and that taxes increase. And so when you increase the rent modestly, or the standard 3 to 5%, that's accounting for the taxes that you have to pay on the land that the property sits on. And lots of renters don't understand that you have to increase the rent over time to accommodate the land tax that you have to pay. Not only that, there may be certain things that needs to be done to the property, like maybe repair the roof, which the tenant don't have to worry about, because all they have to worry about is paying their rent and their utilities. But you have, as a landlord, you have to worry about fixing the roof, the piping, and anything else that comes along with owning the property. Talk a little bit more about that for folks that may not understand that. I mention it, but you can expound on it.
All right. So when you own a property, there are always going to be expenses, of course. You know, you're paying, for example, you own a property and you have to pay for water if the tenant doesn't pay for water. We have to pay for garbage removal, which is
Standard.
is standard, of course. Those are the type of thing. How about roof? We have to pay for a roof if the roof needs to be replaced. For example, we see something happening in Florida now, where there's something called SB 4D, Senate Bill 4D, because of what happened 2 to 3 years ago.
Speak a little bit about that. Digress and go to that, and then come back to what you were explaining. You say SP or SB?
SB 4D.
Could you
Senate Bill, SB stands for Senate Bill 4D.
expound on that? So you educate me, because I'm not familiar with it, and also educate.
Of course.
Yeah.
So SB 4D was a law passed right after Champagne Towers collapse.
Okay, I know Champagne.
On Surfside,
Right.
over there in Surfside, which caused the demise of 98 people. And ultimately what happened is that there was a lawsuit, and they had to pay out. When I say they, I'm talking the insurance company had to pay out $1 billion
Whoa.
in settlement
To the
fee
families.
to the family, the surviving family. What? And the insurance companies had to pay that.
$1 billion.
Because and our governor said, listen, we should not have buildings collapse and killing people. That's just not right. So I'm going to pass a law to make sure that we have funds set aside that's our expenses, right? And that's what you're talking about. Of course, I mean, as we get old, our health have the tendency is to go down, and we're at risk. So someone residing in a property we have to check the health of the building as well.
Right, right.
The roof is going to deteriorate.
Right.
The plumbing system is going to deteriorate.
Correct.
We have the electrical panel that needs to be updated.
Correct.
And we have to pay taxes, and taxes increase. And for some reason, we have folks that come after us because we are investors, and
They want our money.
And they want our money. And
We live in a litigious country
yeah.
where they, if you bat an eye the wrong way,
It's a lawsuit.
it's a lawsuit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have all these different expenses now, more than ever, which we got from SB4D. Any building over 3 stories, 3 stories and up, has to do something called a milestone study, which
A milestone study.
which consists of 2 phases. A phase 1, a visual inspection, and number 2, someone comes in and fix whatever problem that was found during the inspection, like load-bearing walls. You have to replace the roof. You have to take care of the elevator, paint the building, take care of the electrical throughout the entire building, that type of thing. And there's another one called the Structural Integrity Reserve Study, which is called the SIR study, which consists of other inspection as well. And then number 3, folks can no longer vote no reserves because
They used to vote no reserves.
Yes. So now you must have at least 10%. And all those things have to do with expenses, right? You have to be transparent. So when you own real estate, you have to have reserve funds. Most folks that are tenants in buildings don't pay attention to these things because
Right.
they don't need to.
Right. They're
I'll take care
tenants.
of that.
Right.
You're tenants. You take care of that stuff. So
Let me interject. Hold that thought. You're talking about the building, the understanding the health of the building,
right.
and not only that. I used to do before I did property management. I used to be in restoration, where I had to be on the scaffold. You can't be scared of heights because you're hanging off a building that's 10, 20, 30 stories. I'm hanging off a scaffold that 30 stories, and I'm looking in the apartment,
Right.
coming down on the glass, and there are parts of the concrete where the glass would be attached to, and we had to sound check to make sure if they're check for any hollowness in the wall, and then if we find it, we have to mark it, and then we have to go back and we have to take a hammer. It's called the
Chisel or
power hammer, the
jackhammer.
jackhammer, right? And we have to drill it out and look at the integrity of the steel and find out if it's rusted and if it can be cut and replaced or sandblast and then recovered for security, covering it with plastic, with the paint that's actually hardened like plastic. So I had to do that. So before that law was passed, there were actually restoration companies that were doing it for property owners that would make sure that maybe every 5 years they check the structure and the integrity of the building from the base all the way up to the roof.
Right.
And now, but there were still development companies that I'm familiar with that had no reserves. They would collect all this money and use that money for other things. And now that there's mandatory reserve, I think that's a very good thing, because now the government can force you to go and maybe every 5 years, I don't know how long of a period, they have to check the integrity of the building. They have to tap into that reserve. So that's a question that I add in what you were explaining. How long? What's the duration from checking the integrity of the building from the first time ongoing? Is there a duration?
Yeah, so if you're within 3 miles off the beach, it's 25 years, and within and outside of that, beyond the 3 miles, it's 30 years.
That's kind of like a long period.
Yeah. So now things they're changing things now.
Mm-hmm.
They're changing anything that's over that age it was changed to 25, 3 miles from the beach, and 30 beyond that 3 miles. So
Okay.
that's where it is now. But it seems long. It seems
Yeah,
long.
it seems
Right,
long.
Right.
I
But
would-
it's from a new building to
To an older building.
yes.
Okay, so they have a variable. If the building is built at a certain year,
Of course.
it falls in these guidelines. And if it's built back, like say the 50s or the 40s or 60s, it has this guideline. Maybe it's every 10 years or something like that.
Well, it's new here in Florida because
Oh.
there was no need to have a milestone study and structural integrity reserve study, and no whatsoever, no fund at all, no reserves. And that's what was Florida was all about. That right. So you can have your building falling apart. And that's what happened over there over there in Surfside. The building fell down. Where's the money? There's no funds.
Right.
So by doing that now, what you find that it's getting really messy out there when it comes to condo. I just want you to
in
know
Surfside,
that. No, with condos out
General.
there. Yeah, the condo market is horrible now. If you want a condo, you can get a condo really inexpensive.
you know
now.
what's. I'm happy you say that.
It's messy.
I'm happy you say that because I recently went to extended family member of mine, and he's been trying to sell his condo. So he was like, I want to sell it. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo. And I'm like, how much you want for it? He was, at one point, I believe they wanted over 300. Now they're selling it for barely over 100 grand. And I'm
Exactly.
like, I'm interested. Give me some time. I'm going to find a way so I can buy this from you. But, and it's in a good area, right? It's in a very good area. So when I found that, I actually knew the comps around back 3-4 years ago. You couldn't get a condo around there, a 2-bedroom condo, for less than $275,000. Now they're going for just over 100 grand. So
really inexpensive now
yeah.
because of what happened with all these laws, and there's a deadline. They have to get things done, a lot of these things done by the 31st of December 2024. So what happened, you have lots of assessments. So since there are a lot of assessments and to fix these buildings, now you find folks have to pay for these things, right? And
hold on. Put us on the main camera. Hey, folks, you hear that? Now you can get a property on the low for the cheap, right? So go out there if you're renting and try to buy one of these condos. Hopefully it's beneficial for you. If it makes sense, do it. Would you agree with that, or that would be like maybe an entrapment or something like that?
folks, don't buy just yet, because what's happening right now is that there are a lot of assessments, and you don't know what's coming next, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done before a certain date. We're talking about the 31st of December 2024. So you might want to just hold off for a little bit for now. But if you need to sell, come over here and see Mr. Campbell. I can get it sold for you, all right?
All right.
Have about 10 more. I sold 10 condos last week. And the week before I sold another
hey,
10.
Round of applause, Ray. Round of applause. Give 2 rounds of applause, Ray. Congratulations, man. Yeah.
And I just want to let you know, for that reason, until this work is done, a lot of folks are getting out of condos because of the maintenance fee, because the insurance went up. Insurance is a major problem, folks, in Florida right now. It's ridiculous. There were so many lawsuits that the actual insurance companies ran out of here, and they left another company by the name of Citizens, and they're trying to get it all together and figure it out. So now we have insurance up here, and guess who's left to pay the insurance? The actual property owners. So they just kind of divide it between the property owners, and they're left to pay the actual insurance, and that insurance is tacked on to their maintenance fee. So folks that was paying maintenance fee maybe 2-3 years ago for $400 now paying $700, $800, $900 in maintenance fee for a condo that's $125,000. So a lot of folks are not open to paying a maintenance fee that's $400, $500, that's $700, $800. So they're backing away from condos. So if you Google now what's going on with the condo market in South Florida, you'll see danger zone, or you'll see something like the Florida market condos are stuck in a train wreck.
Hey,
You'll see
Ray,
things like that in the
do
article.
do a search and pull that up. I just want to see it. And everyone, I retract my advice. Yeah, do a search, Ray, and pull that up so the folks can see it, because I really want them to see that what Bernie's saying about the train wreck.
Florida condo market in a train wreck. Just put that in, you'll see it.
Florida condo market. Is that it? A Florida condo price fall. What's a condo seller to do? Are condo price dropping in Florida? Is Florida condo? Oh, is a Florida condo a good investment? Click on that one.
Buying Florida.
Yep. Okay. T, you want to read that? T, you want to?
Go down. I think you should go down a little bit more. See what they're saying on the bottom there. Go down. Well, okay, Florida condo market is becoming a disaster.
There it is. There it is. Yeah. Let increase that and read, and let's read it. Yeah. Go back to the title. Read that.
Florida's condominium market is becoming a disaster zone.
All right.
Over the last several decades, retiring and buying a condominium in Florida has been a rite of passage for millions of Americans entering their golden years. Unfortunately, a combination of high insurance rates, high homeowners association